a lot about Zerbi, and he said, and the quote is, I started my flow with him, and he wants to play football. If I'm honest with you, the day he came in, he changed the mentality of the club, the way he transmits what he wants. Something was very different from the first day. New energy, new boost. Sometimes in bad situations, you only need a small change to make a massive difference. And that small change was Roberto. When he was a player, he played as number 10 like me. He knows how I feel in certain situations. It's true, I need that kind of freedom to feel good about my game. He gave me confidence, and that's what you need as a player. When you don't feel confidence or trust with the manager, it's a little bit difficult. From day one, he gave to the whole team, especially to me. And then, of course, things like this happen. Only the second injury in my entire life. Simmons, so he's talking about how much confidence he's given the whole team and Xavi Simmons.
Yeah,
and you saw that with Xavi, didn't you?
Yeah, he started to obviously that Brighton game, scored a goal. He was starting to really ball out, and then obviously the next game it really happened, that ACL, and at that point you're like, another player going down with a big injury. How are we ever going to get out of this? But Roberto found a way, and that was, I think, the key thing. I think he described, what everyone saw, which was he gave new energy, a new boost. And he was just that difference maker. I think we've heard it from Maddison, we've heard it from other players. Obviously now Xavi's also saying that energy that he transmits from his passion for football and his obsession, that energy was the difference between Tottenham kind of succumbing to the relegation, not getting over the line. We were losing game after game. We looked completely lost. We looked directionless. Yet that appointment from Zerbi and the way he dealt with that situation was phenomenal. And he was the difference. 100% he was the difference between us staying up and going down.
Yeah, we all sit here, don't we, and talk about the players that made such an impact and who the best signing was and which is the players that kept us up. We've spoken a lot about João Palhinha and Kinski and all that. But the reality was it was Roberto Zerbi and no one else. So fantastic stuff. Speaking about the injury and recovery, and he said after the operation you have to spend a couple of days in bed doing nothing. You really don't have the power to do anything. You cannot stand up. You cannot go to the toilet alone. You don't even have the appetite to eat. It was hard at the start, but my family came to the hospital, and then it was like, okay, let's move on. This is a lesson in life. My first big injury, and I'm seeing things in life I didn't see before. Everything goes so fast, especially in football. This is the first moment to do other things. I'm still young. I've experienced a lot in my life, my personal life as well as my football life, and now is the moment to be calm and see things differently. A time of reflection, a new beginning. I'm very happy we finished the season on a high because the season was not good. Hopefully the coach and the team start the new season well, and the moment I'm back on the pitch, you're going to see a new Xavi. All things happen for a reason, and that's how I'm looking at it right now. It's a classic, isn't it? First big injury has to come at Tottenham. Solanke, no real injuries before Tottenham. He barely kicked the ball in the last year. It's just happened so many times, hasn't it? Bloody cursed.
Yeah, but sometimes when, I think a lot of players have spoken about especially when you're in Xavi's position, you've got that first big injury. It can kind of put a lot of things into different perspectives, and you come out maybe stronger for it mentally than you were when you're playing every single week and in the hustle and bustle. That's all you're focused on, you're concentrating on, and then everything stops for the amount of time it does for Xavi, and you have to consider different things, different perspectives. I think it can give players like him just that little bit of extra motivation when they are back to make the most of every single day, do everything. I'm not saying Xavi wasn't doing that. He seemed like a guy who was obviously a very good trainer and someone who always focusing on improving, but it's going to be interesting to see what he learns from obviously this period. And it's obviously awful. It's the worst probably thing for a footballer, being injured for the amount of time he's injured for, and especially an ACL, it's a brutal recovery, and it can take a very, very long time. But it looks like Xavi is taking everything in his stride at the moment. He seems to have a good perspective on things. So fair play to him.
Absolutely. I do think he's a guy with a top mentality. And even when he came under a lot of criticism last season, I genuinely still believe it wasn't a lot to do with him. He was doing a lot of the right things. He was still working so hard for the team. It was just the system, the manager, the coaching that let him down at the end of the day. I remember that game against Chelsea where everyone's like, oh, Xavi, such a poor performance. But he was the one busting a gut to get back, to defend for the team, showing a top mentality in the game. And it happened so many times throughout the season, but because he's not pulling up the numbers of goals and assists and impacting games in those ways where he really should be, it doesn't get spoken about. But the reason he wasn't pulling up those numbers is because there was no options for him. He would get a ball, he would turn his man, and then there'll be no one within 30 yards of him. So what is he supposed to do?
Mm-hmm. I agree. I mean, hopefully, it's such a shame he got injured just 2 games into Zerbi's spell, because if we could have seen 7 games of him, like the one against Brighton, there'll be so much excitement about him going into next season. Obviously, he's got that big injury now, so we'll have to wait and see. But I agree. I mean, I think Xavi, we know he's a top talent. We know he's a very good player when he's on his game. Obviously, I think he'll have criticism of himself about how he performed as well last season. I do think there were some moments where he just wasn't good enough within himself, but I think a lot of the situation was more to do with the whole situation at the club. Everyone were playing poorly, everyone low on confidence. He wasn't getting the support he needed. He was coming into a team which was completely all over the place. We had a manager who was playing the most turgid football you've ever seen. And even just one game under Zerbi, you already started seeing a difference. So I can't wait for him to be back, but it's such a shame that it's such a bad injury he's got.
Yeah, it was like that goal against Brighton. You're like, all right, Xavi's arrived. Next game, ACL. You just can't write it. He went on to say that I have to get confidence back in my knee. Hopefully, I can start running soon. Right now, it feels strong, but I still have to gain more weight on that injured leg because it's been 9 weeks without doing a lot. I have to compensate the other leg as well. Get back in the pattern of running, not only in my knees, but in my hips, my upper body as well. So a little bit of everything, but the progress is there. Every day I can see it, and that's what counts. So it's great to hear about the recovery going very well at this moment in time. He says, the day I feel good again in my knee, I'll sit down with the people in the club and decide when I'm back. I have my own target, but I'll keep it to myself. Otherwise, I'll create expectancy. And I think that's a kind of comment that maybe Kulusevski, can learn from, because Kulusevski kind of built the expectations within the fan base, saying, "Oh, maybe I'll be back for October. Maybe I'll be back here and there and everywhere," and he's still not back. So I think he's right to err on the side of caution there, Xavi.
He is, but also the way he says that kind of implies he might think he could be back earlier than people expect. I'm not sure when that would be. I think we have seen in previous, it has happened. You can maybe get over an ACL in 6 months, which would put him at what was it, April, May, June, July, August, September, October time. So that would be obviously a super quick recovery. Obviously, he's probably targeting as soon as possible, but given it's April, I'll be shocked if he's back playing before the new year. I'll be absolutely shocked, but I wonder where his target is, where he sees himself, because maybe the recovery's going better than expected, who knows. But but the way he said that, he doesn't want to create expectancy, because he says, "Oh, I think I'm going to be back in October." Then we all think he's not quite ready. All of a sudden, there's maybe some people get frustrated, or some people feel let down, or whatever, and whatever feeling that is. But I wonder where he sees himself, where he sees that target. Yeah. Is it before the new year? I wonder.
Yeah, it's hard to say. He then goes on to speak about Spurs' transfer window so far, and he was talking about Van Hecke, and he said Van Hecke is a regular starter for the national team. He is experienced in the Premier League, but as well, there's his aggression. You have Senesi and Robertson, very experienced. Robertson won the Premier League and the Champions League. We are finding a good balance between young and experienced players, and that's something we maybe missed last season and can't be allowed to happen again. I've played with the best players in the world, and I want to play with the best. And the fact that the club is spending this kind of money for this type of player gives a clear message to everyone. They want the best players at the club and to bring in the best in each position. I've played against Tonali, for example. I know he is a top player, aggressive with the ball. He'll find the passes to those like me in the 10 position, and he'll help the team just to play the football and bring success. Everyone can see the club is aiming high. We know what happened last season can't ever be considered to happen again. This is a massive club. We all know that so at the start of the season we will see a new Tottenham.
Big words
So you
there.
can see, players within inside the club getting very excited
Yeah.
in terms of when they're seeing what's going on the outside in the transfer window.
Yeah, I think first of all, he says, I think we all know that at the start of the season we'll see a new Tottenham. That's great words. That's obviously looking at the signing to making. That's what we're assuming. But it's great to hear that from inside the club, someone who's in and around it, also believing that. But I think the main thing there, he says. He says the club, I've played with the best players, I want to play with the best, and the fact the club is spending this kind of money for this type of player is giving a clear message to everyone. I love that. So it's cute. The fans have felt it. This kind of transfer window is clearly Tottenham making a statement, and it's different to anything we've seen. And it clearly is now the players inside that dressing room all feeling, okay, this club is serious. This club are getting these massive players for big fees. They're spending the money. They're being ambitious, because it's very different to what we've heard from players in previous years. The likes of Danny Rose saying, I don't want to play with players. Don't want us seeing signing players. You have to Google all this kind of stuff. Other players are saying, we need to be. Romero's been saying, stuff like whatever, hinting at things in his social media posts. But now you got Xavi, out there saying, look what we're doing in the transfer window. This is the club making a statement. We're going big in this window. We want to be a different Tottenham. We want to sign the best players, not just players that can do a job. We want the best players, and I absolutely love that. And I love that the players are really getting on board with what the club are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Exciting times at Tottenham. And then he just went on to say that it cannot get worse than this. We've experienced the worst possible scenario, not only for the players, but for the whole club, because, if you go down, there is a lot of trouble inside the club. People who may lose their jobs are depending on you, as well as as a player, it touches you. We were very conscious of that, but that is the past. We have experienced the worst, and we're looking forward to making an impact together and bringing the club back to where it belongs, and that's up at the front. That's why I'm putting in my work every day. I know I can bring that to the team. There are big goals I want to achieve for the club, and I know I will achieve them. As players, we all have big goals and ambitions, so does the coach. My ambitions are together with the ambitions of the team and the club to win everything. That's why I signed. I cannot wait to get back on the pitch and show a better version of Xavi. Heard that? To win everything, people. It's coming.
Exactly. He ain't just coming back for top four. He's coming back for everything. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it, Xavi. Come on. Great quotes from him. I think what he says about it can't get worse than this. We've experienced the worst possible scenario. I wonder how, as the players and obviously the fans as well, how that experience we've had last season of literally dancing with death, last season, one game away from relegation, how is that going to affect us psychologically? Are we going to benefit from long term from having that experience and the togetherness it brought us? And as well, it kind of maybe humbled the club a bit, that it could actually happen to us. We could actually be in a relegation battle. We're not beyond that. Maybe something the club felt we were, and last season that proved it weren't. Also, a lot of the time as well, we've been such in the wilderness, not really challenging for anything, not doing much for so many years at this point. It kind of reminds us that there is joy to be had even in things like just staying up, and even in those kind of scenarios. And maybe for next season, it's going to give that a little bit more energy to the crowd than it has been. When in other seasons when we've been challenging in Europe and we haven't really appreciated it as fans sometimes, because it's just what we expect to do. But maybe we're going to have a new perspective as fans, and as players, about what this club is and can be. So I hope having been through the worst and been through that experience, we come out positively for it.
Absolutely. And I think it might have meant a bit more to Xavi than it meant to some other players, because I think other players maybe would have known they would have got a transfer. Xavi was stuck because of the ACL. So Xavi knew if Spurs would go down, he would have had to play championship football at some point next season. Whereas, a likes of a Mickey van der Ven or something like that probably would have left the club in the summer. So I think for Xavi, it just might have been a bit more scary. I know, look, it would have been scary to all of them, because no one wants to be part of the team that sends Tottenham down. But Xavi was knowing he was stuck here.
He wasn't going to move with that injury,
that was Xavi's interview. Some really interesting stuff there. Some, I think, encouraging stuff as well. Stuff that we knew, but to hear it from Xavi, I just think it means more, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And it's good to hear from him. It's good to hear how he's getting on, and with that injury, it must be very tough mentally, but he seems to be coping well with it. It's a fair play to him.
Yeah. All right, let's